So thank you all for having me. Again, I'm Brandon. I am pretty much an Army guy turned data guy. Did a lot of stuff in the Army, and now I'm enjoying life as a civilian, sort of, and it's pretty cool. And as I made my transition, I tried to figure out like what the similarities were between one world into another one. And as I looked at um, what one of the main things that popped out was just kind of like leading people and leading technical teams. And I thought that like there was a huge difference between leading different types of teams, but turned out not really. And so one of the essential questions I had to ask from the outset was like, what is the role of a manager on a technical team? And from a tactical standpoint, the team manager basically clears roadblocks that either she or the team identifies, or they get budget and people resources and are really in a position to be able to articulate the needs higher so that somebody can give you what it is that you need in order to do a better job. But really, I found out the major role of a manager is to manage the environment. And I found two effective ways to kind of manage my team environment. And I'll like share those with you in this time that I have remaining. The number one rule that I've tried to live by in managing teams is remove ambiguity. Uh, Ambiguity on the team is a real killer. Clearing, like clearly identifying what we're providing, like in our service model, is also critical because I think a lot of times you get assumptions that are baked into what we do on technical teams, analytic teams. And what you'll find is that people believe that you're doing one thing and you're there to provide one service, and they're expecting something totally different. Anytime you have a conflict, I found that there's a difference between the expectation that people have and then what people receive. And so if you can mitigate that from the outset with the team and with whoever your stakeholder is, you're in a much better position to be successful. Secondly, clearly define the problems that your team is addressing. That's been one of the largest challenges I've had over the course of my career in that in the data space is that like oftentimes the leaders that either assign you projects or the stakeholders that you're working with don't really know the the challenge that they're trying to address. I told somebody recently, I think I feel like I'm a data therapist. I think that's what I am really, because I have to come to acceptance of the problem that I have, and I have to help other people come along and say, yes, this is the thing that I'm trying to solve. And that's an art. You have to learn how to work with people, and sometimes technical folks get the bad rap of being hermits or people who don't um, work well with others. We're all just in there our keyboards and that sort of thing, and that's true. But that's not true for everybody. But one thing I would say is that you as a leader, if you have those sorts of people on your team, or even if you're that person on the team, there is this need to find out how to be more relatable to folks that aren't in your technical space. It's something that I have to do currently still, and it changes as your environment changes. So your ability to figure out what other people need is critical to your success. Um, the next thing I like to talk about is uh, the effect of having an ambiguous environment. And as a leader, as a team leader, a manager on a technical team, there's some stuff that can really kill your team dynamic. Namely, uh, the job dissatisfaction that comes from working in an ambiguous environment. People may love the job initially and come in, but when they come in, but as you work in an environment where you don't know what right looks like, you start to be less satisfied with what you have because there's just so much that you don't feel fulfilled in. You start to get unfulfilled in your work tasks, your supervision ratings will go down. And if you think people aren't going home and talking to their spouses or significant others or friends about you, you are dead wrong as a manager. And even as a coworker, like I know that people they just talk, and you have to be aware of that. And it's not that that should be your primary concern, but that's an indicator for the health of your team. And going back to this idea of being dissatisfied with your work task, I knew somebody that decided that they were going to stuff envelopes just to feel like they had accomplished something every day. You know, they took a part-time job to like just doing this mundane task simply because their regular task, their regular work day didn't provide for them what they wanted. And all of this may seem like something that's difficult to measure, but I can assure you that you'll be there's significant business impact when your team doesn't feel like they're in a position to do their best work. And as a team leader, that's your job to provide an environment. Secondly, dealing with ambiguity requires that you have some sort of skill on fixing it. So here's some quick tips. Leaders create structure. They initiate structure, they create structure. They clearly communicate the expectations for what you are doing and what you are not doing. Tell your teams what the rules are. Show them how to be successful. Show them how to fail. Show them how to fail and recover from failures, even provide your own experiences. People learn a lot from you when they see that you have, like, you made your mistakes, but you're still where you are as a manager, as a leader. And they say, well, wow, if you can make that mistake, I can do that too. How did you come through that? And if you've already paid for a mistake, there's no reason your team should be paying for it too. If you've gone through it, that's enough. Clearly define the work problems. Talked about that. There's some critical questions that have come in with this, like, why are we solving this? What does the business need? Is this the best way to solve the problem, or should we even be solving this problem now? That's critical. Lastly, I would say that building a team community is the other way to make sure that your team is successful in overcoming ambiguity. Anytime you have a community, it means that you have at least 3 key ingredients. The first one is consciousness of kind, is what they may refer to it as, but all it means is everybody on your team has a sense of a distinct meaning for that team, their membership, and that they're different than maybe other teams that may be exactly the same as them. But they're on this team. We're a part of this. You have to figure out a way to create that on your team. Some of that could be by the second thing that you have when you have a community, which is a ritual. Like we all have data rituals. Hey, I'm going to come in, we get my coffee, I'm going to fire my machine, I'm going to do some set of things. Every workplace has that, but you have rituals when you have a community. And then lastly, you have traditions. So one of the things that I found was really helpful is like, hey, when we have a really serious work week or a difficult work week, traditionally we'll just get together and say, hey, all right, let's go to the nearest watering hole, bar, hotel, whatever, someplace nearby the job, and we just hang out and probably talk about something other than work. But it's a chance for your team to blow off steam. I know people do happy hours all the time, but you have to be intentional about this if you're running a team. I would say that one of the things that managers have difficulty with that I've seen is encouraging people to ask questions, and difficult questions. I really like that some of my co-presenters had this element of truth about it. And I feel like a lot of that's lost. But when people ask questions on a team from a technical standpoint, they're trying to get to the truth. That's why we all do this. And I would encourage you to ask people to ask difficult questions, because if you discourage that, one, you may come off as arrogant and insecure, but two, you don't get the best out of people. People challenge you because they're smart and they think deeply. They're not always challenging you because they want to take your job or make you look bad. That may be the case sometimes, but lean toward people being at their best and trying to pull the best out of you as well. Lastly, I would say to learn how to best represent your team's capabilities, figure out ways to show them off, find venues for them to express the things that they've learned. And then a last point would be learn from your team. And if you haven't learned something from your team, you may not be paying attention to them as well as you should. So with that, I'll conclude.
Awesome. Brandon, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. You've got so many questions and comments that are just flying in. I want to start with, there are several comments thanking you for your service. Christian, David, Joseph, Svetlana, and many, many others. So thank you so much for your service.
I appreciate
your presentation. I want to start with, you mentioned that team leaders need to show their team that it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
And show them how to recover from failures. Do you have an example from your prior experience that you can share where you've either seen a leader or have been the leader that has shown your team how to fail?
Yeah. So what I'll do, I'll keep it simple because I've had a bunch of failures and I don't want to tell the long stories. So what I will say is most jobs have an evaluation process that happens at the end of the year. I'll show my team what was said about me as a critique. And I'll say, listen, they said, maybe you need to be better, make something up. You need to be better at talking to people who work in a particular department. Okay, I tell my team that because there may be a skill set on my team that would be able to help me with that. Somebody may have more experience and say, like, you know what, I've been working with so-and-so in that department for years. Let me show you how to get through to them. And so me sharing the critiques that I've received have actually helped me. And I think that that might have been an armyism I learned, that like, hey, whatever my boss was tasked to do, I then was tasked to do some subset of it. And I had to show my people like what was expected of me, and therefore it was expected of all of us. But in my failures from those, or in the things that I didn't do quite as well, it's good for them to know so that they don't have to make that mistake.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a question here from Danny. He's asking, what are the most common roadblocks, right, to building these teams?
Clearly defining what the team is set up to do, what the team's not going to do, the time constraints, how you're going to, like an intake process. When I said, managers are to set up like some sort of structure. One of the things I found is that a lot of places don't have intake processes for how they're going to receive analytic requests. So, and that may not be the case everywhere, but you may have, like, some of my friends work in people analytics like me, and they may have requests coming in from one department or another department, or through a system or two systems. That's hard to manage. So just being able to corral all of the work that comes in is key to making sure that you can get everything done and don't miss anything.
Yeah, absolutely. A comment here from Natasha saying that she loves how the speakers are wearing their DATAcated gear. So thanks.
That's right.
She loves the synergy. And I know you mentioned reducing or removing ambiguity. So I think this question from Bradley is a good fit. How do you address ambiguity if what is correct doesn't exist yet, building something from scratch?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been in that position quite a few times. I think you determine what that is. You decide what you're going to do, Bradley. Like I would say that, like, hey, look, I don't know what the world outside of me is doing, but this is what I'm doing because I'm trying to meet this particular need. Now, don't get me wrong, that does come with a downside in that, like, somebody may come along and say, you're not supposed to be doing that. But then I found it that when I've been in that position, I say, look, if there's no speed limits, there are no speeders. You can't tell me something's wrong if you haven't posted a sign.
Yeah.
It's saying that this is where it's supposed to be going. So it just helps you to define what you're going to do. It doesn't necessarily make it right, but it's right for you in that moment until better guidance comes along.
That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Bradley.
Alberto says that your talk is really inspiring about management. We're all human and we all made mistakes. And that was addressed actually on the panel earlier today as well, when we spoke about what mistakes people make, and everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. Thank you, Alberto. Yeah, I made a lot of them. I learned from them too. So.
Yes, as long as we learn from them, I think it's okay to make them.
Yeah, learn and don't
make the mistake once, so you can actually learn. Question from Elise: how do you advise to challenge a team for different skill levels without appearing biased?
I think that one of the things that I found is that a lot of people don't train their folks, and so if you institute some sort of level of training, like consistent training, like right now, well, probably not right now, but like before things got all crazy, I had it where we would just take a day and just train. Maybe not the whole day, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. We would just train. That time was secret, right? And I think that in doing that, you kind of avoid this apprehension of engaging people who maybe at different skill levels, and you don't want to have that conversation. And so when it comes to challenging those teams, you may set up different challenges within that based on the skill level that you've currently assessed previously in the training that you provided for them. It's kind of a long answer, but like there's some prerequisites you got to have first in order to start challenging people adequately. Because what you don't want to do is offer a challenge and then you have some people who can't participate because they're not at this skill level.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And we'll take one last question from the audience. This one's from YouTube. When creating team culture or events like you mentioned, how do we ensure inclusiveness? For example, a team trip to a bar may not be for everyone.
That's a very good question. And the thing is, I don't really drink. I just have I go out there with my people because I know they do. I think you find venues and you find things that are of interest to everyone. You just may even say, hey, look, we're going to go hang out at a bowling alley. And you may have people that don't bowl. You may have people who are wheelchair bound that can't. You may have all kinds of circumstances. But you find something, you just have to be thoughtful about what people have expressed on the team. And I think the way to do that is to spend time with the team as people, right? Like maybe you have a set of meetings, you have a working session where you all just kind of get to know each other. It's kind of a little bit laid back. And you can find out then what's important to folks and figure out a way to hang out with them and to just blow off steam together.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess once you know your people, then you'll know how to engage with them and how to build that culture.
Exactly. It's a lot easier.
All right, Brandon, well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know this probably flew by. It flew by for me because we still have so many questions and comments coming in. But this is rapid fire, and I want to make sure we leave time for our next speaker. So I really want to thank you so much for making time for the DATAcated conference.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Awesome.